Now we're going to bring in Jonathan Kim. He's going to do a ReThink review for us. It's on the movie Howl. Let's take a look at it first, and then we'll come talk to John about the history of censorship and other interesting facts from that era.
All right. And did you form an opinion as to whether or not the book called Howl and Other Poems has any literary merit?
I think it has no literary merit.
Go ahead.
In order to have literary style, you must have form, diction, fluidity, clarity. Now, I'm speaking only of style. And in content, every great piece of literature, anything that can really be classified as literature, is of some moral greatness. And I think this fails to the nth degree.
I see. Can you think of any other reasons?
Yes, use of language. In regards to the figures of speech he uses, he fails in rhetoric, of course, for one thing, because his figures of speech are crude, and you feel like you're going through the gutter when you read that stuff. I didn't linger on it long, I assure you.
What is obscene? Not just what acts or objects are obscene, but how do you even define the word? Would a poem be obscene if it had the line, with dreams, with drugs, with waking nightmares, alcohol and cock and endless balls? Well, there is such a poem. It's called Howl, written in 1955 by Allen Ginsberg, and is considered one of the most important literary works of the 20th century. But in 1957, there was a court case to determine if Howl was obscene, and whether Lawrence Ferlinghetti, the owner of City Lights Books in San Francisco, should be sent to jail for publishing and selling it. In the new film, also called Howl, we're given a look inside this trial, with dialogue taken from the court transcripts, while seeing James Franco play Ginsberg in a performance that provides more proof that Franco may be one of the best actors of his generation. Howl expertly weaves together three stories: the obscenity trial, a fictional interview that combines parts of real interviews with some creative license, and a recreation, and sometimes animation, of the first time Ginsberg read Howl at the Sixth Gallery in San Francisco in 1955. I saw Howl with a big Ginsberg fan, and he couldn't get over what a good job Franco did, not only recreating the voice, cadence, and mannerisms of Ginsberg, but adjusting it to fit Ginsberg as a young man, before he became a legend and the voice of multiple generations, capturing the excitement Ginsberg must have felt when he read Howl out loud for the first time. In the trial, which Ginsberg didn't attend, David Strathairn plays Ralph McIntosh, a lawyer with a long history of prosecuting obscenity cases, including one against Howard Hughes for having Jane Russell show off too much cleavage in the film The Outlaw. Jon Hamm of Mad Men plays Jake Ehrlich, a lawyer who was the inspiration for the TV lawyer Perry Mason, and defended the literary merit of Howl and the right to free expression. Mary Louise Parker, Jeff Daniels, Treat Williams, and Alessandra Nivola make appearances as experts to help analyze Howl and determine if it's literature or smut. Bob Balaban plays Judge Clayton Horn, a conservative judge who taught Sunday school and famously sentenced 5 female shoplifters to watch the 10 Commandments and write essays on the moral lessons they learned. The trial represents an amazing moment in American history, where the repression, conformity, racism, and homophobia of the 1950s collided with the openness, free expression, questioning of authority, and creativity that would come to symbolize the 1960s. I do have a few criticisms of Howl. While interesting to look at, I felt that the CG animation based on Eric Drucker's illustrations that sometimes accompanies the reading of the poem is too literal and clashed a bit with the primarily retro look of the film. Howl also doesn't provide much historical context to show how radical Howl was at the time, or the society it was rebelling against. And to be honest, Jon Hamm is distractingly handsome. But it's safe to say that none of these things ruins this impressive film, which was directed by Rob Epstein and Jeffrey Friedman, who are mostly known for directing documentaries like the Oscar-winning The Times of Harvey Milk and The Celluloid Closet. I read Howl for the first time after watching the movie, and it's amazing to experience the power this poem retains more than 50 years after it was written, or to think what the world would have lost if it had been banned. Conservatives like to claim that censorship is about protecting kids, morals, and society, but censorship isn't about protection, it's about control. Control over which people, organizations, and religions can be criticized. Control over what's considered normal and acceptable. Control over what ideas you're allowed to think, not for your protection, but to protect the status quo. Remember, it can take a while, but those that censor and oppress almost always lose in the end, just like they did with Howl. And in the words of Allen Ginsberg,
"Oh, starry-spangled shock of mercy, the eternal war is here! Oh, victory! Forget your underwear! We're free!"
I'm Jonathan Kim, and this is a ReThink Review.
So that's where Will Ferrell got it from. Cock, balls!
Oh, is it really?
I'm not sure that's what old school was going for. But, okay. All right, so now, Allen Ginsberg, this guy turned out to be gay, isn't it?
Yes, he did.
So I was reading this story about Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg on their famous journey, right? Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating because it was back in the 1950s, you know, that historical context you're talking about, John. And so they're going along and they're having this wonderful journey, and then every once in a while they pick up guys, and then they would have sex with them, right? And they found that to be perfectly normal, but people thought, well, Kerouac isn't gay. I mean, he's having sex with the guys, but he's not gay. But Ginsberg, he apparently likes the boys a little more, so he is gay. Which
it was a time. I mean, the people were kind of up for anything at that time.
You know, yeah, that's true. But there was like, I don't know. I'm guessing. But as you emerge from this sort of incredibly conservative era and this almost sort of Victorian attitude about sex, and for them it was the 1950s, for everybody else it was the 1960s. They were ahead of the curve, and there were a lot that. And you hear, and in Hollywood, it was happening in the even 40s and 50s. Again, where like there were a lot of straight actors in Hollywood who were having sex with guys, and they were just like, all right, let's see how that goes. And then eventually, I presume many of them stopped and they got married. Maybe then none of them stopped.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I mean, you explore and you don't know, and you just, but you're emerging from this giant shell, so you don't even know what you like. In a sense,
But, I bring that up because I'm amazed, John, at how bold they were, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, that
gutsy.
still seems a little bold today, let alone in 1955.
Yeah, and I mean, basically, Allen Ginsberg was in love with Jack Kerouac, and eventually Kerouac was like, yeah, I'm kind of more with the girls sort of thing, and Ginsberg sort of had to accept it, but they're saying that part of him being gay really was a big part of what sort of fueled the poem of Howl, because he had to let all this stuff out. And like I said, I'd never read Howl until I saw the movie, and to read it, it really is extraordinary in the way that it, in a poetic way, depicts this world that was not accepted at all. It's like kind of crazy people sort of like running around through the cities, doing drugs, having sex, like being depressed, making mistakes, traveling around, and whereas it's like, no, gray flannel suit, you go to work, you raise your family, that's all. That's the only option you got. And these guys are like, no, there's this whole other world.
Their initial answer to just about everything was yes.
Right,
you saw they were bold. They were like, yeah, sure, all right, yeah. Give
it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that takes great courage. So I really appreciate it. So what was it? But just before we go on, what was the result of the trial?
So they found Lawrence Ferlinghetti innocent. I mean, a big part of the trial was that it had been established a little while earlier in a case that obscenity was not protected by the First Amendment, but literature was. And so a lot of the trial hinged on, is this literature or not? And they brought all these experts in, which you see in the movie. And like I said, all the dialogue from the trial is taken from the transcript, so that's actually what happened. And the prosecution was asking questions like, well, is this literature? Like, will this stand the test of time? Does this have literary merit? And people were, and some people were like, well, yeah, it does because of this and this. And somebody say, well, it's impossible to know. I mean, Leaves of Grass had been banned, and that is now a great work of literature, like almost every work of Faulkner.
Did they bring? Did they use stuff that has clearly been accepted as literature that has all the sex in it?
Well, I think that it was mostly in Howl. There were words like cock and balls and fuck and stuff like that, which obviously offended people at that time. But I don't think they ever read like Leaves of Grass. But that it's more sort of inferred kind of things. Whereas this was
but like
more
what about
explicit.
like actual? I mean, like Lady Chatterley's lover and stuff. You'd think that would have, or the Bible.
Well, so actually, let me ask about the Bible, because this is an amazing fact. What's the first book banned in England?
Right. In 1525, William Tyndale did a translation of the New Testament from Latin to English, and he was burned at the stake along with his books.
Wow. So I didn't even know that part. So they banned the Bible, they burned the Bible, the New Testament, and they burned the guy along with it for doing the translation.
Yeah. Oh, basically they did that. I mean, he was allowing other people who were not the clergy to read it for themselves and say what it said and say what it meant, and that was an incredibly dangerous idea. And that was actually, there's a book called Howl on Trial, which you can find parts of it on about 30 pages of it on Google, and I was reading that, and that's where they have this history of American censorship. But that was the first one recorded in England. It was the New Testament from Latin to English.
How about in America? What's the history of censorship here?
Well, let's see. In 1842, the first federal obscenity law was the U.S. Tariff Act, which prohibited import of obscene material from foreign countries. And then a big thing was in 1868 in England, there were these laws called the Hickman laws that started, and it was, quote, "The test of obscenity is where the tendency of the matter charged is to deprave and corrupt those whose minds are open to such immoral influences."
That's what I was just telling you.
Yeah. Specifically women, children, and the weak of mind.
Oh, the weak of mind.
By the way, every one of us.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Well, there's an interesting part in the trial where the defense says, you know, this idea of we need to like protect these people from reading this. It's like, it's never the people who are saying that we should protect people. They never need the protecting. They're like, oh no, I'm not going to be influenced by this, but someone else out there will. But the idea like that we're going to create all these laws for this phantom person somewhere out there who will somehow read a book and just like will go crazy and, you know, start having sex with everybody and doing all the drugs in the world.
When has any poem influenced anyone to do anything?
Well, that's a different part. And you know what? I'm going to ask a quick question about that. I'm worried that, you know, this movie looks interesting, but the part where he's reading the poem, there's some chance I'll be bored to tears.
Well, it's not that long, right? Or it comes in and out.
It comes in and out.
Yeah, they weave it.
I hope not, because I mean, what's interesting, like you see him reading it, and he's Ginsberg as a young man and really fired up about it, and you see the way the people in the audience are reacting, and it's like when we look at them now, you know, it was the 50s, so everyone's kind of dressed sort of nice, like buttoned down and everything.
Right.
But you can see like what this means to them to hear this completely different type of language talking about a subject that no one talked about and that might have been illegal to print and sell. Right. And they're like, oh my, like someone else understands, like, or someone is articulating this feeling that I've had for so long.
Well, that's good. It
Well,
says
that's a
something
good
about
point.
the filmmaking that they conveyed that, because, of course, the words of Howl now aren't going to convey that kind of outrage at all. It's like a Eminem song.
Well, they've been copied so much, his style. Like once you read it, you kind of have the urge to copy it and everything. But it was like, as I was doing this research, I was like listening to Bob Dylan and reading stuff about Allen Ginsberg, and it was a really nice time. I really enjoyed myself.
It was a really nice time. All right, real quick, anything else banned in the country that was fun?
Imagine real quick a poem like firing somebody up to do something. Yeah, like a guy went into a post office and shot 3 coworkers after reading a book of poetry from Emily Dickinson.
That's not likely. But have you ever seen Def Jam poetry?
Is that the Russell Simmons Def Jam poetry?
Yeah, and it's always the same. I don't know if it's based on Howl or not. I don't know if it's, but me, an umbrella, the rain.
Yeah, I know. I can't.
And my cuckoo.
I already want to change the channel.
Right? Yeah. You know, like, oh, but look, that's my ironic anti-poetry thing. Although I have written poetry in the past.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Was there a girl involved somewhere?
Is it here, or did you take it home?
No, it's not here. I have hoped that I have burned it, but I'm not sure. Okay, well, but that was. Oh, well, yeah, the Hope, right.
Is that Blue I
Oh, that
See?
is in the back. Oh, no, disaster. Maybe Postscape.
No,
Postscape.
go get it.
Okay.
Go get, is that Hope I See, is that Blue I See?
Oh, right. How could I have forgotten that? I was just saying it generically.
No.
Oh, no, disaster.
Somebody go get it, is that Hope I See?
Disaster. You don't want to miss the Postscape.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a reason alone to be a member. Anyway, so John, I'm sorry, I'd asked you what else was banned in the U.S.?
Right. I mean, basically every book that's considered great at one time or another. Fahrenheit 451, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which is still banned.
The
in a lot of
great
schools
irony
now.
of Fahrenheit 451 being banned is just too special.
The Grapes of Wrath, Catch-22,
Forget
Catcher
Your Wrath
in the
was
Rye.
communist.
Yeah, but the favorite one I found on the site bannedbooks.com is the American Heritage Dictionary, which has been banned at different times, but was banned in 1987 in Anchorage because it had some slang definitions of some words, including balls.
That seems to keep popping back up.
And speaking of banned books, next week, or actually starting tomorrow, is Banned Books Week in America.
Oh.
So everyone should go read Howl. I strongly recommend everyone read Howl, if anything.
You know, I guess in the end, I'm optimistic. John, you made a great point there about control, right? And how the reason they burned the New Testament, you said in the beginning, is because they're worried, oh my God, the clergy used to have control. They would tell you what's in the Bible and you couldn't tell for yourself, right? As soon as the guy translates this and you could read it, people freak out, right? And so censorship's always about control. But you know what? They lost. We won. Right? Not just the trial, I mean, but look at us now, right?
Right.
Okay, I mean, look at the internet. Can you imagine if those prosecutors in that trial saw the internet today? Their heads would
Be like, whoa, who do we arrest? We got to arrest everybody.
They're saying that, like, with the Gutenberg press, it took the power of publishing out of the government. Now anyone could do it. But, you know, what you're saying about censorship. So Potter Stewart, the U.S. Supreme Court Justice, famously said, censorship reflects a society's lack of confidence in itself. It is a hallmark of an authoritarian regime. A book worthless to me may convey something of value to my neighbor. In the free society to which our Constitution has committed us, it is for each to choose for himself.
Absolutely.
Very quickly, just a movie point. Some really great actors in there. David Strathairn, Bob Balaban, who plays the judge. But I want to ask both of you a really quick question, 90 seconds or less. Jon Hamm is in The Town. That was his first sort of big role in a big movie. He'd been in a couple of big movies, like, whatever, Not the Day the Earth Stood Still, or one of those, one of those remakes. But this is a big role in a big movie, and now in a small movie that's going to get a lot of attention, though, he's got another big role. When I was watching The Town, which is excellent, I thought, for the first time I can remember ever thinking this, he's got to stop doing Mad Men.
Wow, really? Why?
Because he's as you say, he's a really good-looking guy, right? He's a pretty talented guy. He knows what he's doing. And, like, if Mad Men, it might end this year, in which case it's irrelevant. But if it continues to go on, like, he's going to be that guy. Like, it's hard to make that switch. Like, Clooney did it, but, like, he can be an actor. He can be a movie star. But he got to go. He's got to get on television.
I mean, Stephen Carell has been doing The Office for years now.
But that's different. He's not a serious actor. He's a comedian.
Yeah. Look, here's my sense of it. When I saw him in the role, in Howl there for a second as watching the review, I thought, you know what? There he goes. He's back to doing what he should do, which reinforces your point. But because when I see him with his hair scruffed up on 30 Rock or whatever, I think, not good. That's not what he should be doing.
Right.
I need to have his hair slicked up.
So he's got to.
He'll break out of it. He'll do the role that changes the way everyone thinks.
It's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. The number of people who've done it successfully, very small.
Right. Well, we'll see how it develops. We'll see if he's William Shatner or Leonard Nimoy. All right. ReThink Reviews, Huffington Post, YouTube, rethinkreviews.net. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.